Imagine a child with a head the size of a closed fist, the skull compressed, deformed, eyes wide open, lost, the mind trapped in a prison of bones that never grew. Now imagine this wasn't an accident of nature. It wasn't genetics. It wasn't fate. This was intentional. Someone did this. Someone placed iron bands around this child's head when they were just a baby and tightened them day after day, preventing the skull from growing, preventing the brain from developing. Why? Because deformed children make more money. Welcome to the real-life nightmare of the rat children of Shah Daulah, Pakistan's mutilated children. In the city of Gujrat, Pakistan, there's a shrine, a sacred place, the tomb of Shah Daulah, a Sufi saint venerated for centuries. Thousands of people visit this place every year, seeking miracles, blessings, cures for their ailments. It's a place of faith, of hope. But outside this shrine, there's something that will send chills down your spine. Sitting on the dusty sidewalks with outstretched hands, you see children, dozens of them. But these aren't normal children. Their heads are small, disproportionately small. Some no bigger than an orange. The skull looks like it's been squeezed, compressed, as if an invisible force prevented natural growth. Their eyes wander without focus. Their mouths hang open. Many drool constantly. They rock their bodies back and forth in repetitive, almost hypnotic movements. The locals call them chuhas, rats, the rats of Shah Daulah. And the most terrifying part? There are at least 10,000 of these children and adults scattered across Pakistan. 10,000 destroyed lives, 10,000 walking nightmares. And almost all of them were created intentionally. But before we understand this industry of horror, we need to understand the culture behind it all. Because none of this would exist without a belief deeply rooted in society. In South Asia, there's an ancient tradition called manat. It's a sacred promise. You go to a shrine, make a prayer, and promise something in return if your wish is fulfilled. Sounds harmless, right? And usually it is. A childless family promises to donate food to the poor if they have an heir. A mother promises to shave her son's head if he recovers from illness. A student promises to distribute sweets if they pass their exams. But sometimes, these promises cross a line. There's a story about a family whose lineage was cursed. Every few generations they couldn't have children. 4 generations ago, the family matriarch went to a Sufi shrine and made a manat. She promised that if she was blessed with male heirs, she would have the septum of the firstborn pierced. Her prayer was answered, and true to her word, her firstborn grandson wore a nose ring well into his teenage years. This might seem strange, but it's relatively harmless. A piercing, a symbolic gesture. But at the shrine of Shah Daulah, the manats became something else entirely. Something horrific. Shah Daulah lived in the 17th century. He was a Sufi saint, a spiritual leader revered for his wisdom and his supposed ability to perform miracles. But there's a legend, a dark legend, that surrounds his name. The story goes that Shah Daulah loved children deeply, perhaps too deeply. According to local folklore, he had a particular affection for children with disabilities. Some versions of the story say he blessed these children. Others say he collected them. Over time, a belief took root in the region, a superstition, a curse. People began to believe that if you refused to give money to a child begging outside Shah Daulah's shrine, your own children would be born disabled. Think about the power of that belief. No parent wants their child to suffer. So when a deformed child extends their hand, you pay. You always pay. Not out of charity, not out of compassion, but out of fear. And someone evil, realized the business opportunity here. If people believed they had to give money to disabled children at this shrine, then disabled children became a guaranteed source of income. But there weren't enough naturally disabled children to meet the demand, so they started making them. This is where the story gets even darker. There's an organized network in Pakistan. Some call it the beggar mafia, a criminal syndicate that controls thousands of beggars across the country. Here's how it works. The mafia targets the poorest families, families so desperate, so broken, that they'll do anything for money. Sometimes they buy children outright. Sometimes they kidnap them. Sometimes parents, drowning in poverty, simply hand them over. These children are then taken to secret locations, and the transformation begins. When the child is still an infant, between 6 months to 2 years old, when the skull is still soft and growing, they place iron bands around the head, tight bands, restricting bands. As the child grows, the skull tries to expand, but the iron won't let it. The brain tries to develop, but there's nowhere for it to go. The result? Artificial microcephaly, a deliberately stunted skull, a deliberately damaged brain. The child becomes mentally disabled, unable to speak properly, unable to think clearly, unable to ever live independently. Perfect for begging. These children are then distributed across Pakistan. The beggar mafia operates them like rental properties. They hire them out on monthly contracts. A handler takes a group of these rat children to different cities, different shrines, different busy intersections. The children beg all day. Every rupee they collect goes to the handler, who pays a cut to the mafia boss. These children have no family, no home, no future. They spend their entire lives begging, dependent on the very people who destroyed them. And when they become adults, they continue begging, because what else can they do? Many die young from malnutrition, disease, neglect. Those who survive spend 40, 50, 60 years on the streets. Can you imagine that existence? Now you might be wondering, how is this still happening? Why hasn't this been stopped? Because the system is designed to protect this horror. First, there's the superstition, the belief that refusing these children brings a curse. This keeps the money flowing. As long as people believe, the business thrives. Second, these children have no documentation, no birth certificates, no identity papers. They don't officially exist, so when they disappear, no one reports them missing, no one investigates. Third, the beggar mafia has connections. Police officers are bribed. Local officials look the other way. Anyone who tries to intervene faces threats or worse. Fourth, and this is perhaps the most heartbreaking, some families want this to happen. When you're living in extreme poverty, when you can't feed your children, when there's no hope, and someone offers you money for your child, promising they'll have work, some parents say yes. They convince themselves their child will have a better life, even if deep down they know the truth. Poverty doesn't just break bodies, it breaks souls. There have been attempts to shut this down. Human rights organizations have raised alarms. Journalists have investigated. Some rescue operations have freed children from the mafia. But it's not enough. The practice continues. The shrines still have their rat children. The mafia still operates. Because as long as poverty exists, as long as superstition exists, as long as people value profit over human life, this nightmare will continue. Let me explain what microcephaly actually is. True microcephaly is a rare genetic condition where a baby is born with a smaller head and brain. It causes intellectual disabilities, developmental delays, and other neurological problems. It's a tragedy, but it's a natural tragedy. What's happening in Pakistan is different. This is artificial microcephaly, man-made brain damage. When you restrict skull growth during critical development years, you're not just making the head smaller, you're crushing the brain, literally compressing it. The brain doesn't develop properly. Neural pathways don't form correctly. The child loses the ability to learn, to reason, to communicate effectively. They live in a permanent fog, unable to understand what was done to them, unable to ask why. And here's the cruelest irony. Many of these children could have lived normal lives. They were born healthy. They had potential, dreams, futures. All of that was stolen from them before they could even understand what was happening. For money. For a few. For a few rupees a day. The story of the rat children of Shah Dola isn't just about Pakistan. It's about humanity. It's about what happens when desperation meets exploitation, when superstition meets greed, when society looks away because the victims are invisible. 10,000 people living as prisoners in their own bodies. 10,000 lives destroyed before they even began. And for what? So that wealthy shrine visitors can feel like they've avoided a curse. So that mafia bosses can buy another car. So that the cycle of poverty and exploitation continues. The first step to ending any horror is knowing it exists. Now you know. These children exist. Their suffering is real. Their mutilation was intentional. The question is, what happens next? Will this knowledge fade away? Will you forget about them tomorrow? Or will their stories stick with you? Will you share it? Will you demand that something be done? Change is possible. It's slow. It's difficult. But it's possible. Organizations are working to rescue these children, to provide them with care, education, and dignity, to prosecute the mafia members, to educate communities about the truth behind these superstitions. But they need awareness. They need support. They need people who refuse to look away. The rat children of Shah Dola were robbed of their futures. But maybe, just maybe, by sharing their story, by refusing to let them remain invisible, we can help ensure that no more children are added to their numbers. This was the story of Pakistan's mutilated children, a story of horror, of exploitation, and of the darkest corners of human nature. May we never forget them.